What's going on, Maschine Masters family? This is MGTheFuture again with another exclusive tutorial. Today I'm going to be going over a pretty general topic, and that's in terms of managing your sounds, your drum kit, and all your different libraries you may have that you've collected over time, and trying to put them in a system that'll help you become more productive. A highlighting point of this whole exercise is that I find it for myself personally, it's a really cool idea to do this if you're ever going through a bout of beat block or creative block or writer's block. I usually do this because I find that as you do it, you might accidentally inspire yourself. So let me tell you what I'm talking about. First things first, I'm going to point out something on MachineMasters.com itself. If you're not a member yet, you should definitely consider signing up. What I'm going to do here is go to the channels. I'm going to head over into my subscriptions area, and there's two important things here. We have free kits and sample pack Saturday. Free kits, tons of drum kits that are available to you, covering drum breaks, 808s and trap kits, all sorts of useful stuff, even some general samples. Sample pack Saturday, I believe these are all full-length samples, and I think they're about 5 each pack. And as you can see, they're already up to 201. So you do some simple math on that, that's about 1,000 different samples you have access to. And I bring that up because I noticed in my Kanye West and the J Dilla video I did, a lot of people ask me where I get my samples from or how I have such a large library to pick from. And the simple answer for people starting out would be something like this. It's right there. It's curated by Billy, and they all sound pretty good. I'm pretty impressed. But let's move on. So you got your drum kits and you got your samples. So let's deal with the drum kits first. What I've done here is created a folder for my collection. This is pretty basic. I'm pretty sure we already do this, and I'll show you real quick. I have an archive from all the years I've been producing, and I have folders within folders of tons of stuff. The reason why the naming conventions are important is so that you can keep up with it. So in this one, I have a few different subcategories, and you'll notice I'm using a hashtag so that when I sort through a folder, or if this gets too large, it'll rise to the top in list view. So we have our free kits, our sample pack Saturdays that I've chopped up, and then sample pack Saturday itself. And you can see in the free kits all the kits that are available. And on sample pack Saturdays, I've got 3 of them so far just to listen through and kind of test them out. And I think they're all really good. So we'll start on drums first. So there's 2 cool concepts I've come up with that work for me personally. I'll be using Ableton Live, but this will definitely work with machine groups. It'll work with Fruity Loops if you're an FPC user, or if you're using something third-party like Battery. Reason users, of course, Kong, NNXT, Logic users. We have that Ultra Beat we can use, so tons of ways to go about doing this. For this particular track, I'll call it single shots. So I'll go ahead and go to my Maschine Masters folder that I imported via add folder. I'll go ahead to my free kits. And what I like to do is I like to analyze the different kits and kind of pick out my favorite sounds, because you'll notice kits like this might have over 20, 30 different snares. And in a producer's lifetime, we might only actually use 10. And I'm pretty sure there's a psychological reason for it. But as you're listening through it and you're going down the list one by one, certain ones will stand out. So what I'll do is, just as an example, I'll go ahead and drag them in. Any particular samples that resonate with me or sound like different samples I've heard in other music I'm interested in, and I'll go ahead and align them into one group or one particular kit, and then I'll save it for later use. One thing that's important is I keep track of the name of my actual, where I got these samples from. So for example, this one would be called Prophet Snares. So if I go ahead and create later on and I want to try out different kits or make it a point to use certain kits, instead of going through all these lists of folders and directories, I'll already know that I've done my homework and picked out my favorite sounds from the Prophet Snares. So for instance, if you delete it, and you start over with the impulse instrument, instead of picking impulse, you can see that it shows up in your preset list, which is pretty cool. Another thing I like to do is create drum kits, meaning these are sounds that have a particular theme, or they're the kick, the hi-hat, the snare, percussion sound, or voice effects even. I put them and make them one particular kit. One cool way to do that is with reference tracks. So let me show you that real quick. Okay, so in this example, I'll be using a track from Logic's latest mixtape, Bobby Tarantino.
In London talking to rhetoric about my life and shit.
So just by listening to that short snippet of it, I already have an idea of what kind of kits he's using. His particular set of producers, I believe they're all West Coast based, or at least they are now, so you'll hear a lot of that DJ Dahi, Hit Boy, and even Boy1da influence. But let's say, for the sake of argument, I wanted to create that kit from scratch. So what I would do is I'll go through all my downloaded packs that I haven't used before, or I'm not using enough of, and I'm pretty sure we're all guilty of doing that. And I'll try to make a kit based on what this track is doing. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm pretty sure mostly psychological, but in this example, for me, it'll be workflow. So this particular kit, this one's called the speed dial drum kit. It has a lot of, I guess we call them trap sounds. So I'll listen to this track. I know it has a pretty hard kick and a really generic but compressed 808 snare on it. So I'll go ahead and listen through this, and I'll pick similar sounds. It doesn't have to be exactly the same snare, but something that puts you in that same feeling. And I'll go through and I'll find some deep kicks. And remember, when you use an impulse, you have a lot of options. Like you can, if you don't like the tone of that kick, or if it's in the wrong pitch, you can go ahead and stretch it. Or if you want, you can transpose it down a step. But for the sake of this video, I'll go ahead and fill this rack up and listen through the rest of that song, in fact, and pick out different hi-hats, open hats. I'll try to match as many samples and examples as I can possibly find. And then once you have that, you can go ahead and save it. And in this case, I'll call it Logic 44 bars kit. So when I'm creating something later and I'm not quite sure what mood I'm in or what vibe I'm going for, I can, if I'm starting with drums, I do that a lot, I can go ahead and call this kit up and get right to work. The same thing will go for the rest of this album. If I listen to this song, this particular album, and let's say it has 10 or 12 tracks on it, and let's say 3 or 4 really resonate with me, I'll go ahead and map out a kit for each one that resonates with me. So later on, if people are like, yo, I want a Logic type beat or Jay-Z type beat, and I know we get a lot of that and we see a lot of that online, so instead of me fighting that, I just go with the flow. So all right, so you like those kind of samples, those kind of drums apparently. We can look at the tempo information and even include that on it. So for instance, this particular track, Ableton guessed it at 110, which is probably more like 55. You could also add that to your name. So that's one way of doing it, and that's for drums. So we got single shots, our favorite sounds from a kit, or different sounds we think sound good together. And then we got the actual drum kit itself, which is us creating new kits based on songs that we like a lot. The second part of this video is even simpler. This is more in respect to dealing with samples. So in the case of the Maschine Masters website, we have a wealth of samples we have access to, such as Sample Pack Saturdays. So Sample Pack Saturdays, you can go through, listen to all the samples. And this is what I recommend. I'll give you a workflow tip for this. So because Sample Pack Saturdays on average, it looks like they're doing 5 less than 10. So between 5 to 10 samples every Saturday. I say as soon as you download the pack and listen to them each all the way through, go ahead and drag them into your DAW and start chopping them up. And you don't have to do it with any intentions, but just listen for different parts of the song that stand out to you. So for instance, this one I've done before. I know I like the intro a lot. Make sure you deal with the tempo too. And because Ableton Live is so smooth with the beat matching, pretty much 2 bars in your sequencer is going to be 2 bars of the actual sample. So you can do Command L to set a loop region, automatically put you in loop mode, and test that out. So it's pretty sharp, it's on point. You can zoom in even further with Ableton with the timeline view and get an even closer look on that. And just by looking at the waveform, I can see where it's breaking at. We'll zoom into the beginning as well. All right, so that's sharp enough for me. I'll go ahead and chop this. I want to say it's, let's see. The shortcut for chopping or splitting is Command E. So you'll go ahead and select the region you're working with. Or you can just highlight the end of your loop mark. And when you hit the little loop band that you use to zone in on the loop, it'll just chop it where the end marker is. And you can move the rest over because this is an uneven cut. And what I'll do is, because this is one of many samples I'm sure I'll make out of this track, I'll go ahead and highlight it and consolidate it. And the reason why you want to do that is when you start adjusting the time of it or the warp markers, you don't want it to influence the rest of the song, and it operates a lot faster when you do it that way. Dealing with this from here, usually when I chop them up, of course you can use the same loop region and drag it and test it on other parts of the song you like. Or you can zoom in on the whole thing and get pretty accurate. But for the sake of the video time, I'll go ahead and leave that out and leave that up to your vices on how you like to deal with things. Second thing I want to show you real quick though is because this is an uneven count, I want to make my loop bars an even count. I'm going to go into my sample here at the bottom, make sure you're highlighting the consolidated sample and not the song, and I'm going to double click the end of it. That's going to give us 2 warp markers, the highlighter yellow warp markers, one in the beginning, one in the end. And the time stretch in Ableton, all you gotta do is drag it. So I'm gonna drag it to 3. And the reason why I'm dragging it to 3 is because that's gonna tell me it's an even 2-bar loop. And what you can do is go back into your arranger view up here and drag the end of it. And you notice if you keep dragging, it doesn't go no further because of that playback marker. And the same thing with the loop marker. You make it an even 2 bars and test it out. And that's pretty much it. Once you have that done, Ableton has a save feature, but it doesn't give you a choice where to save to. So I don't use that. Instead, I'll do it the so-called hard way. We'll go to File. We'll go to Export. We're going to make sure this render length is 2 bars because that's what we counted. The render start time, this is important. Make sure you're not accidentally highlighting the whole song when you save this clip. We'll keep it as a WAV file. Bit depth, I wouldn't worry about too much. Most of these are probably already 16, and especially when you're dealing with MP3s and stuff, you're not gaining anything by adjusting the bit depth higher. We're not going to use any dither. You want to create the analysis file, so when you're browsing through your browser on the left here, Ableton doesn't spend that extra time trying to create the waveform data that it does. This will create it for you ahead of time, so the playback's even faster when you're demonstrating different sounds. Normalize I keep off personally. If you're dealing with drum breaks or mono samples, you can convert it to mono. And then once you're done, we'll do export. Now, I did this before earlier, make sure I was on point, but I'm gonna point out a couple of things. So I'm gonna take you through where or how I set this up. So I'm going to my Maschine Masters, and I have my sample pack Saturday where I got it from, and I have my free kits where my drum kits are, but I created a new folder called My Sample Pack Saturday Chops. And within here, I'm gonna do a couple of things. First things first, I'll just go ahead and put Sample Pack Saturday 201. I'll go ahead and type in the beats per minute, which is 86. I'll go ahead and type in the fact that it's 2 bars. And that's important when you're mixing and matching samples, as I pointed out in that Kanye West video, just so you have a mental note of it. And be sure you know it's 2 bars at 86, not just 2 bars in general, because you know double time will change that dramatically. And then I can name it Clarence or the name of the song. So, and the reason why you want to do that, or you want to create as much or keep as much information in the file name as possible. So let's say you get this beat placed or you sell it to an artist. Well, when you go back into the project file, when you create it, this will help you find that original song. So instead of naming it Dope Brass Loop, I always make it very detailed. And this way I can go back to sample pack Saturday 201, find the full name of the song, go ahead and Google it and get all the publishing information if the situation calls for all of that. So this is Clarence, and I'll call this intro loop. And I know it was really long, but it's better to be safe than sorry, and I've learned that the hard way. Like beats I've made maybe 7 years ago, a lot of ethnic and Japanese and exotic Arabian samples I used, and I was just cutting them up, and they're called like loop 1, loop 2, loop X. Now if I go back to them, I want to listen to that song again, I can't, because I have no idea what they are. So just that's probably the most important piece of information in this whole video. And of course, if you've seen the harmonic mixing video, the Kanye West video I did, you can go ahead and drag all these in the key finder when you're done. And I'll show you what that looks like because I did it already. I went ahead and wrote the key to file, so it's D minor. So imagine if you're done with Sample Pack Saturdays, you'll have 1,000 samples in this folder, all of them with key information, BPM information, how many bars it is, and the original source of the file, which is so important. And then this way, when you get to work, you won't have to do a lot of shuffling. And also, when this exercise is done, you've got new drum kits you can experiment with and start creating instantly. You've listened to probably, at least 10 samples at a time if you're going through your sample packs. And by that time, you'll find that you're all of a sudden inspired, or at least most of the times, in my case, I am. So hopefully these tips help you guys out, help you get over creative block, help you manage your file systems better. And if you have any questions about this, or if you want me to expand on any of it, definitely let me know in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe to this video. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please let me know. I'm always listening and responding, and I'm here to help you guys. But thank you for tuning into the Maschine Masters. Until next time.